We are here at the amazing San Diego Comic-Con. I'm sitting next to the beautiful and wonderful Leah Hoyer.
Aw, thanks.
And we are excited to talk about all things Comic-Con. Well, not all things, but specifically the panel that you were just on, creating multi-online worlds.
Creating multiplayer worlds.
Yes.
Worlds. Yeah.
And the expansion for Guild Wars.
Yes.
Heart of Thorns.
Exactly.
Yes. Right. So tell us a little bit about that first. Let's talk about what you're most excited about for Heart of Thorns.
Oh, well, there are so many amazing things that are going to be in Heart of Thorns. People who are players of Guild Wars 2 already are sure to not be disappointed. It's also a great time for people to join Guild Wars 2 as a new player and come into this adventure. It's my area, and so something that I get particularly excited about is the story that we're going to be sharing with folks. Guild Wars 2 has an episodic story model, and we've been putting out chapters of the story for quite some time now, and the expansion, Heart of Thorns, is going to have a really nice, meaty chunk of story that builds off of all of the stuff that we've been doing so far.
I love that we have, for any of you that don't know, we have the studio director over all of narrative for ArenaNet. So we have the perfect person to talk about story. And I love story. I am a writer as well.
Excellent.
So what about, let's just jump off on that point. What about the story? You said it leads off all the previous content. So what can players look forward to or get excited about?
Well, one of the things that, for those people who know the Guild Wars story and who are caught up, we left on a fairly big cliffhanger that the Elder Dragon Mordermoth has just taken down the bulk of the Pact fleet that went into the jungle to try and assault him. And with that, we also saw that the reason that that dragon was allowed to be able to do that was because it is the sort of creator of an entire race, a playable race within the game. Our Sylvari race was created to be minions to the Elder Dragon Mordermoth, and some portion of them have actually turned and are now dragon minions, and people who you may have thought before were your friends might not be anymore, and it's going to be an interesting time to be in the game. It's going to be an interesting time to play Sylvari. There's going to be a really neat way that we sort of build into that, and I encourage people to play the game both as a Sylvari and a non-Sylvari, because you might have a fairly different experience. So that's all pretty exciting for us.
Definitely, absolutely. And I think you said, in fact, if you pre-purchase the game, you can play right now part of the expansion.
There are moments, so anyone who's pre-purchased the game is able to be involved in our beta weekends, and actually right now, as sort of a bonus and something that helps us test out new content, we have a new profession that will be coming out in Heart of Thorns called the Revenant. The Revenant's a super exciting profession, and I can talk more about that, but one really cool thing is this very weekend, for all the people who have pre-purchased, they're able to play the Revenant character in the existing world of Tyria. And so right now there are a bunch of Revenants running around online in the live game, and people are getting really excited about it and seeing how those play out. And it gives us a really good chance to also understand what people like to play about it, how we can balance that character the best we can. From a story perspective, what's really cool about the Revenant is it allows you to channel one of 5 currently legends from the past, from original Guild Wars lore. And so for people who are really into lore and very into the story and have been following it for a while, it's very rewarding. Yeah, it's super cool to bring back these characters. But it's also neat in that each character, not all of them are heroes necessarily. Some of them were villains, some of them were somewhere in between. And so they all fight with you and for you in different ways. And people will find that they can really work on different fighting styles, different combat techniques, as well as get to know some personalities of them. We have one, for instance, that really was a villain, or a, and is not at all happy that you are using his powers to try and, further your own cause.
How dare you disturb me?
Absolutely. And so he's not saying the nicest things to you. And it's in fact the case that most of the skills that you try to use while channeling that will actually deal you a bit of damage. But he's also pretty powerful, so it tends to be worth it that you have to do so with,
choices.
which is cool. So for me, from my perspective, of when you start talking about the story of the gameplay, it's so baked into this kind of gameplay and this profession that there is a narrative component of it. And it's to me the best kind of narrative is when you see the story and all the gameplay components come together to make just a better experience. And that's what I think people are going to find in the narrative.
So it must be so surreal to see the Revenants running around and see this vision that you have, worked on for so long. Were there any challenges that, your team had to overcome with this expansion that you're proud to be like, hey, we did it, it was a challenge, but it's here?
Making games is a challenge in and of itself. They're really hard to make. So there were so many little challenges along the way, certainly. I think the biggest thing that I will say has been such a great thing that we've been able to do is also, while we're creating the narrative, we've been working with the designers, we've been working with the tools developers, we've been working with all the different components of the game to actually be able to make better storytelling experiences, because now we have better tools. So one cool thing that I think people are going to really respond to, and we've already seen it and some of the people who've been able to get in and see some of the content, is that your player character is now talking again. That hasn't happened for quite some time. It hasn't happened since the original sort of purchased game. Our episodic, we weren't able to do that, but now we're finding better ways to be able to bring back player character voice, and we're playing it, we're bringing it back in an even better way, I feel, because previously when the player character talked, you had to be very sort of confined to a certain space, and we've been able to really advance our technology with this online world and all of the, all of the bandwidth that's required to do this, to allow the character to still be talking and moving around and fighting and doing all of this, and so we can progress the story while we're also in action. Because in a game and in game story, you don't want to have your story sitting over here and your game over there. You want them to come together, and I think we're doing an even better job of that than we've been able to in the past. So I'm really excited about that.
And we all can hear your passion, and I feel like Guild Wars 2 has such a great passionate following because of that. Like, there's so much poured into those subtleties with the story and the characters, and remembering the throwbacks, like you said, to bring back things that are nostalgic, like those 5 personalities, but yet pushing it forward so that there is also new content to explore. Yeah. That's a balance.
It is a balance. It really is. And I think you're totally right. Our community is so passionate about the game. They're so involved. You were saying I was on a panel yesterday and we had so many Guild Wars fans in there. It was great to see them, and the number of questions that people had and the way that they were responding to things, the way they interact on our forums, and they get super passionate about both the current story as well as, this thing that we heard a little bit about back a couple years ago, are we going to see that come back again? And people are really excited about all those nuances. And I think from my perspective, the thing that I want to make sure is that the current story that we're telling is always really vibrant. And that in many times will call back to former lore that we've had and weave it in, and sometimes it will also be about introducing new characters and new places and progressing it. And we don't want to just build a world that's about backstory, because that's not story. It's how are the events that you're into right now affecting your character, affecting the characters that you've gotten to know. And I think, I'm really excited for a lot of the stuff that's going to happen in Heart of Thorns for this. So
Yay! For on that panel, you were on it with amazing other fellow developers.
Yeah.
And you guys were mentioning that part of a highlight for creating multiplayer online worlds is creating great content for the players, but the story part of it, that's where your heart is. Is there a favorite thing about narrative design that you have just really loved about your job, or loved about pouring into Guild Wars 2 that maybe you talked about on the panel, or a fellow developer?
Yeah, because my background is actually, up until about 4 or so years ago, I was focusing mostly on, say, television story. So I came from making cartoons for Disney, and through that got to sort of dip my toe into doing a lot more stuff in the interactive space, working on whether it be handheld games, console games, online. I also got to make this awesome interactive experience in one of our theme parks, which was amazing. It was like walking around in the middle of a video game. And once I was involved with that project, I started to realize how cool interactive storytelling is. And I think that the thing that gets me most excited is not just telling a story that you could tell in a book or you could tell in a TV show or something that sort of has a really linear conveyance to it, you know, but something that the player character's choice is really going to matter, and where the players and the community around help to build the story and create it and broaden it. And I think that we've done a pretty good job so far up to this point, and I'm really excited about a lot of stuff we're doing in Heart of Thorns to really even take that further.
I agree, and I love what you said about that, because I feel like games, they make us, get beaten down in a way, whether it's, you know, getting bullied in school, or maybe we've been grinding at work over and over and over, and, you know, we don't maybe get the validation or the recognition for areas of life where we pour in all this work. And I feel like games like Guild Wars 2, you can really step into this world, feel like you matter, right? And that you're the hero. And I love that you said that there's that opportunity for gamers to be a part of the story and give that feedback, and that, you know, developers like you are gamers themselves. You're trying to create this experience that's so immersive and wonderful. See, I'm getting excited. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you're excited. This is good.
And we can be excited because this expansion is coming out this year sometime.
We haven't announced a date, because I will say, you know, we are really about to start our beta weekends, and we definitely value player input. And so we want to make sure that as players are giving us feedback, that we're able to respond to that and put together something that we're really excited about. But I will absolutely say we don't intend to wait for, you know, forever, a long time before being able to put this out. We want to get it out to the fans, you know, as soon as we can, when we feel like it's ready, and we're really excited about
and that's
that.
The best quality and polish. You guys are amazing at that. So there we have it. We got the scoop on Guild Wars 2, the expansion Heart of Thorns. We got the scoop on her amazing panel about creating a multiplayer online world.
Yes.
And SDC 2015. Thank you all for watching. Leah Hoyer, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone watching.
So yeah, I'm Genese Davis for MMORPG.com. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Make sure to level up your MMO knowledge by visiting MMORPG.com, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and by following us on social media. To catch up on the week's biggest MMO news, watch our latest MMO FTW. And to see if there's a better MMO out there for you, watch one of our latest First Impressions videos. Thanks for watching.